Hi, I'm Sally Whipple, Executive Director of the Connecticut Democracy Center at Connecticut's Old State House in Hartford. And we're really glad today to bring you a virtual tour. I am upstairs in the balcony, a place that you don't normally get to see. It's the balcony that overlooks the House of Representatives chamber. And this is where the public used to sit to watch the proceedings when the House was in session, when the Old State House was one of the state capitals.
Hi everyone, my name is Allie and I'm a museum educator at the Connecticut Democracy Center at Connecticut's Old State House, and I'm standing here in the House chamber. This is where the House of Representatives met for the Connecticut General Assembly from 1796 until 1878. This room has been restored back to what it looked like during the Victorian era, so I'd like to point out the stenciling on the walls, the big velvet drapes, those are all Victorian design elements. The desks surrounding me are all original. They were brought in 1878 when the Old State House became Hartford City Hall. The Court of Common Council met here in this room from 1879 until 1915. The desks that were brought in here that are original are the same desks that are currently used at the House chamber down the road at the current state capitol, which was completed in 1879. Here behind me is the original Statue of Justice that was put up on top of the cupola of the Old State House in 1827. She's made of wood, and we think that she was probably made down at the shoreline of Connecticut, where ships were being built during the 19th century. She almost looks like a maidenhead at the front of the ship. She was gilded in 1879, and she stayed up on top of the building until 1976, when she was finally replaced with a fiberglass version. Again, she was gilded in 1879. You can see that she's gone through a couple of mishaps. She's lost an arm, she has a brace around her neck, but her symbolism still remains. She's holding a scale which represents winning both sides equally, fairness and justice, and holding a sword that represents protecting democracy and punishing those who are guilty of doing crimes, and she's wearing a blindfold to suggest that justice is blind.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Tabor-Conover. I'm head of public programs and Connecticut History Day here at the Connecticut Democracy Center. And welcome to the Senate. This room was home to the upper house of the legislature, and prior to the creation of the Senate House, the Governor's Council, is probably my favorite room in the entire building. It's a great example of a federal style interior, and most of the furniture in this space is original to this time period. And probably the biggest highlight has to be the portrait of George Washington behind me, which was painted by Gilbert Stuart and was hung in this room as a memorial to the former president.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Jacob Orcutt, and I am the operations manager here at Connecticut's Old State House. We are back in the building for at least this one day, doing some filming of some of the spaces here in the building, since not everybody can be here. And the space that I wanted to talk about today is Steward Museum, right here behind me and all around me. Joseph Steward was a minister and an artist, originally from Upton, Massachusetts. He moved to Connecticut and opened a painting studio here in the building in 1796. In fact, his painting studio was almost directly above us in the attic. But shortly after opening his painting studio, he found that it wasn't quite as popular as he was hoping it was going to be. And in 1797, he kind of changed course and turned his painting studio into a museum. In fact, it was one of the first museums in the country. So you can see all around us, we've got all these kind of crazy animals in here. These are representations of some of the things that Joseph Steward had in his original collection. He had a two-headed pig, a narwhal tusk, a two-headed cow. So we've got some of this awesome stuff here in the museum today. So hopefully when we reopen, you guys will be able to come out here and see all these things in a little bit more depth, because there's just too much to talk about all in one short video. But one thing that you won't get to see on the tour that I'm hoping to do today is we're actually going to head upstairs and go to a space that we don't normally go on our in-person tours. So if you want to follow me, we're going to head up the stairs here. All right, so here we are in a room that we don't normally cover on our tour. We call this room 3R, which is not its original name, of course, but this is part of the third floor, kind of the rear room. That's where we get 3R. But originally this was actually a committee room for the legislative branch here in the building. So there would have been special meetings in here as well as in the attic over here where Steward Museum used to be. Nowadays it's kind of a meeting room for the meetings that we'll have with the Office of Legislative Management and our nonprofit. When we hire new people, we do all the interviews in here. So again, it's kind of a behind the scenes space that you won't normally get to see on our tour, but we figure since we're doing things virtually, you might as well get to see some new old spaces here in the Old State House.
Hi, my name is Mariana. I'm a museum educator here at Connecticut's Democracy Center at Connecticut's Old State House, and welcome to the courtroom. This room has seen a lot of changes through the years, and that's why it doesn't actually look like a courtroom today. Right now, we use it as an events venue for classes, conferences, and even weddings and things. But at one point, it would have been the seat of the Supreme Court of Connecticut. And a lot of really interesting cases took place here, the most famous of which is probably the Amistad Trials, which took place in 1839. The opening hearings of that trial took place here. The second half of that trial took place down in the State House in New Haven. But it was a very landmark case that became a cornerstone for the civil rights movement and the fight against slavery here in the United States.
The Amistad Trial centered on 53 African captives and their fight for freedom. Months before the start of the trial, they and hundreds of others had been kidnapped from their homes in Africa to be sold and enslaved in Cuba. But they rose up in armed rebellion and took control of the ship that was transporting them, a Spanish schooner called La Amistad. After the rebellion, the U.S. Navy captured them on the Long Island Sound, and then they were brought here to court in Hartford to stand trial for mutiny and murder, and also as part of several property claims. The court needed to determine if they were illegally kidnapped from Africa or if they were actually Cuban-born slaves. The Africans were active participants in their own defense, and many of them even gave testimony of their story right here in this courtroom. At the end of the trial, they were set free, and although the case was later appealed by the U.S. Supreme Court, they were once again set free and returned to Africa.